Dr. Zakeel from CSIRO to see or to discuss about your paper and how the strategy to write a good paper. So by this chance, we will listen a lecture by Dr. Zakeel with the title with Mastering Scientific Writing, Crafting Research Papers, and Securing Research Grants. So two things that you have to be able, because after this stage, after your postgraduate stage, you have to do writing a paper and writing your own proposal grant. So before we start, I will read his CV. Dr. Zakeel is a research scientist from CSIRO. It's like a brain in Indonesia. So he earned his PhD in the University of Queensland in 2022, and he has many work experience. He is a research scientist, tutor and research assistant in UQ, and prior to be a research scientist, he was a senior lecturer in Sri Lanka. So, Zakeel, because it's 10:12, so time is yours.
Thank you. Do I need the mic?
Yes. Yes. We have the students.
Okay.
Both of them are master, some of them are PhD.
Can you please put your hands up, those who are doing PhDs? One, two. Okay. So expect more questions. And you got the first prize for the 3 minutes. You did very well. And feel free to stop me if you don't understand any of the things that I explained. All right. So yeah, they asked me to do a small talk on drafting a research paper, the strategies that are needed to draft a very good research paper, and also grant proposals. Yeah, I just put that one, but she has already mentioned all of those things about me. Recently, what I did was I took my resume and put two main things and a couple of papers, abstracts of all the papers, and tried to produce this word cloud to show who I am. Looks like, pathologist, epidemiologist, and there are some others, microbiologist, molecular biologist, a mix of everything. So I have multiple skills. And just I wanted to show you where I am from. So my home country is Sri Lanka. If you look at the Sri Lankan map,
no, because LCD.
okay.
Yeah.
So okay, got it. Sri Lanka map, the capital is somewhere here in the west. My hometown is here at the east, coast. Small country, the population size is 24 million. Yeah, little less than Australian population. The Australian population is I think 24 million according to 2023 census. How about the nation population? The nation population. And remember, yes, next PhD. 283 million. Yeah, according to 2023 census, I think it is 281 point something million. Yeah, close. Very good. Thanks. So this is my hometown. And we have a lot of beaches, nice beaches, all touristic beaches there, very close by. And this is a very popular beach there, we call Arugam Bay, which is very popular for surfing. And there's another beach called Pasikuda. They're very shallow beaches for swimming and bathing and all of it. I get a lot of tourists and snorkeling. And we have waterfalls. Yep. And then we have nice, some dangerous animals. Elephants. What is that? Yes. It's not plant. Cheetah, yeah. And then this is our national bird, jungle fowl. And this is a very popular mosque in the capital city. We call Red Mosque. It's very big, but I have never been to, unfortunately. And then this is a Lotus Tower, it's the biggest tower. And then something about, she has already mentioned, I had my degree somewhere, my hometown is here. I moved all the way here to the central part of north central part of the country, do my bachelor's, some of the publications that came out of these. And that is more of Buddhist culture there in that part of the country. And this is a mountain, a fortress called Sigiriya. A rock fortress.
Is that your thesis?
That was my thesis, undergraduate thesis. This is my undergraduate thesis. Molecular characterization of Bacillus thuringiensis, israelensis, which is used as a biocontrol. The protein extracted from that was used as a control mosquitoes because we had dengue mosquito issues, and then at that time I did this project. But yeah, and then I joined the university, I extended that project for some time, and then we produced some crystal protein to market, but the Sri Lankan government, particularly the health ministry, wanted to bring it from Cuba. Because our politicians are quite corrupt. And then when they bring it from someone else, they know they make money. So we informed them, the ministries, they wanted not to use our technology, but to bring from Cuba. We said the culture that you bring or protein that you bring from outside will not work, and it did not work. Finally, they lost money, and then somehow the media came to know about our project, and they came to me to my university and interviewed me with my photos, and then it went everywhere, even up to BBC. And then, about the politics there, then I was getting a lot of threatening calls, and then I had to switch off my mobile phone, go away from the university for 1 week, hiding behind. And there were a lot of newspaper articles and so many things. Even Australian radio channel SBS, broadcast that news. Yeah, that was bad, sad story anyway. But that started from an undergraduate project, which went to a big impact anyway. And then I moved to somewhere very central part of the country. It's called Kandy. I don't know if one of you have been to Kandy. It's a very lovely place like Bogo. Very cold. Bogo is not that cold anyway. But full of trees and it's very, the elevation is around say 600, 900 meters away, above the mean sea level. This is a popular tree in the campus. You can see why it is popular. Yeah, yes. They go and, yes, see a couples there. They go and talk and, yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's a beautiful campus there. I did my master's and then MPhil, Master of Philosophy. When I did that MPhil, my supervisor said, this thesis is so big and large, we can upgrade it to PhD. I said no, because I had to go abroad for my PhD. So then I downgraded to MPhil and got it. All right. And these are some of the publications came out of those papers. I worked on microbial fermentation to produce essential amino acids for feed and pharmaceutical manufacturing. So more of microbiology. And then, yeah, that's the central part. This is some nice, this is the garden we have. Central part of the, we call Royal Botanic Gardens. So royal, so because it was developed during the reign when the country was ruled by British. And most of the architectures, these architectures were developed by Muslim architects, Sri Lanka. The city, the garden, and there is a lake in the center. Yeah. And then I moved to Australia, Queensland, did my PhD, worked on macadamia trees. Yeah. And to say something about Australia, those who do not know, that is the National Gallery, Art Gallery in Australia, Canberra. This Australian Parliament. This is an arboretum in Australia. What is arboretum, by the way? Anybody knows? Arboretum. Huh? What is an arboretum? No, no, nobody knows. Those who say the correct answer will get a copy. Arboretum is a place where you collect trees. Yeah, all the trees in a country, nationally important trees they preserve, bring it and grow. Yeah. And these two are Australia's national animals, kangaroos and emu. What is this? Giraffe. So where do you get the world's tallest giraffe? Where? Africa. No, that's in Australia, in Queensland, in Sunshine Coast. We have Australia Zoo, right? Australia Zoo. That's a Guinness record, world tallest. Okay. Right, now we will move on to the topic.
Seriously.
Serious matter. Right. So if you want to think about or consider drafting a manuscript for a journal or even for a conference paper or anything, you have to ask these questions. These are key questions that you first need to answer. First thing, is the paper really worth writing? Whether the question that you are dealing with, the research you have done, is it really matters for you to write a paper and publish? If not, no point of thinking of writing, just throw it away. So that's very important thing. But that has to be asked even well before doing a research, whether this research is an important piece of work that will end up in publishing, right? Which in most of the cases, particularly underdeveloped and developing countries, people just do any research and try to publish in predatory journals. That's when all the predatory journals are, just growing, yeah. The second question is, what is already available in the literature? That is very, very important. So you don't need to repeat something which has already been done. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's done already. So you have to do something to develop the existing knowledge. You have to develop on that. The third thing, so you're doing one research, you're thinking of publishing, yeah, it's worth publishing. So the next question is, so what? What's the impact that you wanted by publishing this paper? That question is asked to decide. Doesn't work. Okay, sorry. To answer why your research or your finding is important, is that question is to determine where you need to publish, whether it's in a journal, whether it's in a conference proceeding just after presenting in a conference, or just in a newsletter, or just for a pamphlet for growers, farmers, or in a book chapter, which is useful for students. So it all depends, right? So what's the impact that you really want from this paper or for the scientific community? Then it is definitely a journal. And writing and publishing a journal article is a lot of work. Not that simple. You can't do it overnight. It's not a magic. Not even for a Nobel laureate, it's not a magic. And I remember when I was reading the biography of Newton, his first paper got rejected. Rejected. In a very normal, low impact journal, and then he kept on sending it to various journals, and finally it got accepted in a journal that had high impact content. Same thing happened to me with one of my undergraduate student project, which I did in Sri Lanka. And then we submitted that to a journal, rejected. Another one, rejected. And then we submitted another one, accepted. But at every time, what happened was we kept on improving it. Right? It's a kind of learning process. So it's normally takes 10 to 15 drafts. For me, at least 10 drafts. Don't think that you just bring the paper and your supervisors give a couple of comments and again, and sometimes you get annoyed. That's a human nature. If your supervisor give feedback and you address it, again send it in, can you have it? I want to submit it tomorrow or day after tomorrow, and then your supervisor give lots and lots of edit on what the supervisor has already given. They have written something for your write-up, and they have changed what they have written. And again, they change what they have written in a 1 week time. So you will get annoyed. And that's the life. That's the life of scientists. That's the life of writing. That's how it works. That's no matter where you are, whether you are in Australia or UK or Europe or US, that's for everyone. So be prepared to be annoyed. Right? Yeah. So minimum of 10, 15 drafts. You have to expect. Yeah. So never think that your first, that is your right, spelling mistake. Your first and second draft is ready for submission. You see here, I have made a mistake. That's there in the when you write draft. Even for very good, people with good, command of English, they may make mistakes. While typing, that can be. You have to go through it one by one. Yes. Or else, stop doing it. Go and play. Don't think of publishing. If you're not happy to take this challenge, you're not ready for writing a paper and publishing and developing your skills. Okay. The second question that you need to ask is what information that you need to impart, what information that you need to give to others or convey. So in a paper, very good, well-drafted paper will always have a single question. An answer for that single question. An explanation for that single question. Which will make the reader, not confused, very clear about what you have done. Suppose if I come to you and talk to you about these, that, these, and everything, you will get confused, particularly when it comes to scientific papers. I'm talking about, say, for example, microRNAs, blah, 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 so many stuff into that, you will not understand. Nobody. So it should be very clear, a single message at a time. Right? So what's the purpose of publishing? Just to get our Google Scholar Index or matrices high, or to increase the number of papers published. What's really the purpose of publishing a journal article? You have to speak. Yes. So many is that okay?
In bahasa though. If you are
No problem. I can understand your broken English. No problem.
I'm sorry, what the question?
Why do you need
Kenapa kamu
publish?
harus publikasi?
Okay, thank you. We must publish because maybe our research can construct information for application in the other farmer.
Very good. Very good answer. Yeah. Because to convey that message to others, to other scientists, other students, maybe farmers, various other people, other stakeholders. Why? Because they fund us. Your fund for your research is coming from the taxpayers' money. So you have to impart that knowledge to others, everyone who have wanted that knowledge. So if you want to give some information to others, it should be very clear, very concise. If I wanted to say that sugar is produced from beetroot in the US, very clear, right? If I say the sugar which is C12H22O12, which is also known as a combination of glucose and fructose, which is naturally synthesized during the photosynthesis of sugar beet, which is known as beta vulgaris, is the process of producing sugar which can cause diabetes mellitus if you take too much sugar, blah, 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 and say, is that clear? Do you get anything? It's too many information. So it should be very concise, abridged information, one question at a time. Okay. And so your research talks about one question, but it doesn't mean that your project talks about one question. Your project may have multiple questions, multiple objectives. But for a paper, you have to consider one key question, one hypothesis, or maximum of two, maximum, which in case they are related to each other. And then you should provide sufficient evidence to support your claim. Suppose you have identified one, I'll take it as example, virus in Chile, a new virus in Chile. And now we have to show evidence to support your claim that this is novel, this is new in Indonesia. Why? It's very important. If you say an already existing virus, you are repeating, same virus, and unnecessarily putting more burden on Indonesia's export. If you say no virus means you are putting a lot of impact or biosecurity threats to the other countries. For example, those who are importing your commodity with that virus, maybe Chile, for example. I'm just taking an example. So You have to provide enough evidence. How do you provide enough evidence? Through sequencing, PCR, comparison with already existing sequences, and so on. That's your methodology. Right? And in the support of previous literature already done. So that is where you need to do a thorough literature survey to see whether it has already been done elsewhere in Indonesia or not. And also you have to aim to summarize the question and answer in one concise sentence, which is very important when you write abstract and also the conclusion in your paper, which we will discuss later. So, as I told you earlier, suppose if you have a bigger projects with multiple question and answers, then you have to think about more papers. You don't need to squeeze everything into a single paper. Rather, you publish 2 papers, 3 papers, for example, PhDs, right? So overloading a paper with too much information can make it unfocused and less compelling. People will become bored to read your paper. So less cited. Okay, not even you will read your paper once it is published. Okay. So a well-focused paper, therefore, will have stronger impact. Why? Because people will read, people will, love reading your paper. It's a nice flow, very clear English, very concise English. You don't need to show your English color in your scientific paper. No, that's somewhere else. If you are very good at English, you don't need to show that here. Your vocabulary, your blah blah, you don't need to show that. Make it so simple, so concise. Right? You're very good at English, go and write a short story with literary verbs and literary forms. It's not for scientific technical writing. Right. Well, now you need to or you want to write a paper, but there is another set of questions before proceeding. So we have so far looked at 2 different questions. Now the other questions are, what's the right format? Whether the article is more of a research article or it's just a review. Suppose you have done a meta-analysis in a part of your research. So it's not going to be a research article or an original article we call. So which will be a sort of partially review or meta-review, a meta-analysis. It will be a review article. So it doesn't mean that review article is only the review of literature. So now the journals are highly competitive. If you just do just a literature review, don't think that you can publish. No. If you've done some review, that should be done with some quantitative or qualitative research like meta-analysis. Right? And then you have to think about the audience, as I said already. Who is going to be your audience? Okay. Suppose if you are, because that is very important to decide your journal. Suppose you've done something on a crop which is only grown in temperate countries, and you publish it in a journal published in Africa, say for example, a tropical part of the world, say for example, or Asia, Southeast Asia, or South Asia, is more tropical, right? So nobody is going to read your paper which is needed for Canada, for example, Saskatchewan. You're working on wheat. You publish the tropical plant pathology. Who is going to read? No. So it's better if you can sort of select the audience and then publish in the when you select your journal. Yeah, so what that helps you to decide your journal. So the journal selection is very important. That is where most of the people make a mistake. Recently, I met one person who was telling me his paper got test rejected 15 times. 15 times. Test rejection. Test rejection means when you submit to a journal, the journal editor or the editorial office will screen the article based on your abstract and title and see whether your paper, your title, your abstract align with their scope of the journal. If not, they will say, thank you very much for considering our journal for publishing your work, but unfortunately, our blah, 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 blah does not meet, your paper does not meet our scope. But in future, we would like to have your paper published. Test rejection, that is written already there. They put your name and an email. Then you become, after 2 weeks, submission is a long process. It takes 2-3 days. You know, putting this, putting that, putting this, putting this. If you are doing it for the first time, for me, it's 2-3 hours work. But when I when I started my initial journey, it took me maybe 2-3 days, really. It's a lot learning process now. But you get, after 1 week, you just get straight away rejection. Once you hear from the journal, 2-3 days after submission means test rejection. You don't need to even read it, the response. Yeah. So that happens because of the journal. So you have not selected the right journal for your paper, which is very, very right. So we have to check the journal scope and the format. The format of your paper written for Nature is quite different from the other journals. For Nature journals have, your results started, introduction and results, and then discussion, and then small tiny letters, your methods. And the style is quite different. So when you want to publish in a journal, you always is advised to go to the journal site and read about it. And also, very important, you have to always get advice from your supervisors and mentors, because they are experts. They have been doing it for long. They know what journal fits for you. Right? Always get advice. Go and bother them. Right? And then some people consider this one, journal's matrix, the impact factor, citation scope, the indexing. Better go for Q1 or at least Q2. Don't go below that. I would recommend not to go. Yeah. And also at least well indexed in science citation, index expanded at least. Otherwise, no. Yes. So this we discussed, right? So rejection, you're wasting your time and you don't do a proper job. So for all of this, the literature search is very important. That's the key. So decide on what has already been done and what has not yet been done. And what unique insight your paper brings about. Literature is very, very important. Sometimes if we don't do a proper literature, the reviewers may ask questions. Something happened recently. One of our technical officer did one work and wanted to publish and then wrote a draft and gave it to me to check and do it. And I thought he has done a good literature search. Then I did everything and then we found they have, there's another technology they have developed recently, which is more or less comparable. So, ours is also worth publishing, but the comment is, we wanted to highlight that as well. There is another technology parallel to this. We have to say that. Nothing wrong in saying, already there is another one, which is also equal to this. We don't need to hide anything in science. So conducting a thorough review is important and aim for high sensitivity, even if it means low specificity in your research. So it doesn't mean to be very specific in your particular virus or particular bacteria or fungi, not that species, at least related one. Find some more information. Right. Now, prepare the title page. Title page doesn't mean the title. So in journal, you have to have a title page where you have to have your title, names of the authors, and their affiliations. That needs to be done well in advance. Why? The title, not a big problem. You can have a draft title, a tentative title, which you can keep on improving until you submit your submission time. But the names of authors, the order of authors, and their affiliation is very important. I can give you some examples. I supervised one research you can find in one journal recently published, maybe 2 years ago. Optimization of DNA extraction method for palm, date palm. The study was done in Sri Lanka. I was a co-supervisor of the student, it's a master's student project. And the student was registered at a university, but research was done by somewhere else, Colombo, one institution, government institution. And then they wrote a manuscript, very basic form, but I had to do a lot of work. And that's why they included me, of course. Then we tried to publish, and at the last stage, that government institution's director wanted to have his name.
Common problem.
Huh? It's a problem here as well. And then I said, oh my God, it's weird. I was at that time, here. I said, how comes? Has he got contributed? Now this guy, the director, has saying that if you don't put my name, you cannot publish. And that lady was working there in that institution. She will be terminated. So many, sort of. Then the professor in Sri Lanka, she said, if you don't mind, I mean, I beg you to include him for this event. Okay, I mean, if there is no option, and then the journal wanted to contact me to give written, I mean, all the authors need to give written permission to include them. That's a very tricky process, unnecessary. So these things will not happen if you decide it and the order, everything well in advance. Okay, everybody agree? Okay, first name is, what's your name? Maris, and second name is somebody, and third name Gita, and so on. So all done. Everybody agreed? Okay, then we start drafting the paper. And who is going to do what? Okay, so you are writing introduction. Okay, so you are writing, you are doing statistical analysis. Okay, you are looking after this. Everybody share the work. But don't share your work with the supervisor. Okay, they are just to go through and read, not to write for you. Students, right? You have to do. I mean, it's a multi-authored paper, that's the way it works. But all the authors have to read it, the entire manuscript, several times and give feedback. It is not like just, okay, I will do it and keep it for a while and then just today is the end day submission. I go through it quickly, couple of pages and send it. No, you have to take your time, slowly do it. And also I have seen most of the students, what they do is when the supervisors give track change, they just go and select all, accept all. Even the supervisor has made a mistake, accept all. Now, you don't need to accept everything. Supervisor may think something, but what you have done is something else. You have written right thing, supervisor may have suggested wrong thing. So you can defend because you are the one who has done the research. And you know better than anyone else in the world. You know about what you have done. Am I correct? You also say, not your head at least. Huh? You're not talking. Am I correct? Huh? Yes, you are the one, so you should know. So, So responsibility of each author. And also we have to find the sources of funds, sources of support like, statistical analysis and bioinformatics and so on. So all it needs to be well discussed and determined. Because sometimes we get some small support. For example, if a person who has given the seed, the plant seeds to run a trial, you can't have their name in your author. You can acknowledge them. Did you get what I mean? Suppose somebody in the lab is washing your glasswares. So for that, you can't have your name. They are sort of, you can acknowledge them. But your supervisors needs to be in your author list because they are the people who brought the money, they are the people who bring the idea, and they are the people who are mentoring you. They needs to be. I know that some students may have some issues with supervisor when they started publishing their own. You can't do it, and supervisor has the right to write to the journal and say, this is my grant-based publication, and this student has done this, which is unethical. Now, we are getting started. We are going to start. So first we have written the title page. Now we have to start writing. The first thing you have to do is you have to write a skeleton. We have to develop a skeleton, a framework. Okay, introduction, abstract, introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, inclusion, if it is needed. So you have to create an outline, a skeleton, and plan on multiple drafts. That's what I have been telling you. Always plan for multiple drafts. And every time when you put your draft names, better to put a small title, whatever, manuscript, something, virus or virus, whatever, and then underscore date. What most of the people have done is they write something and underscore version 1, version 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 8. Oh my goodness. Version 1, version 1, version 1, version 2. That's confusing. If you put a date, so you know which one comes first and which one later. Otherwise, you will get yourself confused after 20 drafts. And also, when you send your draft, your supervisor always ask them to put the date, follow the same naming, file naming standards. Otherwise, you put something else, a supervisor put something else, you put something else. I remember once I got draft file name and underscore somebody else's initial, and then underscore somebody else's initial, then underscore somebody else's initial. Keeps on like that. Can't trace them. These are very important. That will, save your time. Right. Very important. I'm going to ask this question. Now you have a skeleton, right? You have just put introduction, abstract, introduction, materials, and method, results, discussion. Okay, thank you very much. Just those titles, right? So where do you want to start? Which section you want to start first? Methodology. Good. How about you? Which section would you start? If you want to write a paper, which section would you start? Method. Okay. Abstract. Huh? How do you want the method? Yes. Method. So you start from what? Introduction. Asking you, explain.
Yeah.
Okay, you, yeah. Huh? Sorry? Very good. I would start from results. Different people have different way, but what most of the people do is starting from results. I'll tell you why. Some people start from methods, but not from introduction. Don't start introduction now. I'll tell you why. Never, somebody said abstract, never ever abstract. Now, that's the last piece. That's the last. Why results easy and important is that once you finish your work, the last thing you do in your laboratory or your workbench is, if you have any statistical analysis, you do that. You get the data, get the results. What do you do next? You develop some tables and you develop some figures. Am I correct? So first thing you have to think about when you wanted to write a paper is how many tables and how many figures I want to include. Which are the key information that can go to the tables and which are the information that I wanted to show in figures. And those who are doing molecular biology, always my advice is try not to include gel images as far as possible. Unless otherwise there is any requirement to include gel images, because that will put you a lot of pressure. Because when you want to put your gel image, you have always remember to keep your original gel image. Because a lot of people in some countries, some places, some laboratories, even in the US, they manipulate gel image. Now the journals have software to find out whether the band is manipulated or it's a real band. Whether the gels are spliced or not. So recently, 2-3 weeks ago, we got a paper published. But for that paper, we really wanted to include a gel picture because that's the key finding. And we run the gel, 2 or 3 parallel lanes. No, one single lane or whatever, we wanted to splice. The submitted, reviewed and accepted. The final stage, just before galley proof, the editorial somebody, yeah. He is a PhD holder, of course, in the same field, biology. And he contacted me, said, oh, we have run this software and then we have found that gel looks like, I mean, they didn't say that manipulated, looks like some areas are manipulated. We have found that spliced areas. Could you explain? Then I had to contact the technician and then got the details of which gel what, and then I wrote a response, and then they said, you better mark that one and declare that in the paper. We did that and published. That's a lot of work, really. That's what I'm telling you. If it is not really needed, just don't use it. Okay, you can bring that information into a table format or something else, which is possible. Okay. So now you decided, okay, I'm going to have 3 tables. The first one is the samples and their location information and something else. And 2 second tables with some key findings, results, and maybe 2 or 3 figures. Now, it's very easy for you. Retain that first table for introduction, methods, take the other tables, and now you can place them. Which one has to come first? Which one has to go later? And then place them. And then start describing those results. So you have a table. In a table, you have mentioned all those things. Now you can find in a table at a glance which one is the key, which is very high, which is low, which is very easy. Just describing a table, then just describing a figure and citing that. And write a couple of paragraphs. That's your method. Sorry, that's your results. That's your results. So it's very easy. It's very easy. And also, you have done just analysis, you have done everything, it's there in your head. If you start introduction, method, and so on, by that time, maybe 1 or 2 months later, you may have forgotten some of the results. Okay, so that's the best way to do. Then, so once you write your, prepare your tables and figures. Because that prompts, and also, that's another important point. That prompts some more analysis. For example, you are doing this, you're explaining some of the results. Now you realize, oh, I could have done something else as well. I should have done this one. Okay, now you do one more analysis and generate one more graph, one more figure, one more table, whatever. Okay, it's a learning process. You keep on learning and developing. It's like building a house or something, Yeah, it's right. I mean, you got a map from somebody else, and then, but still, when you are developing, okay, this is not correct. But we'll put this. We'll bring the bedroom here, not there. Something like that. Keep on, developing. Right. And also very important, defining deadlines for all authors. That's very important, you can't delay it, because by the time, if you delay by 1 year, 2 years to publish your paper, by the time your paper may have been published elsewhere, that idea. So be quick. So start drafting results first, but it varies, but most of the people use starting. So I've already said about this. Arrange the content around tables and figures. Just place them and then start writing from there. Present tabular results selectively within the text. It's only selected, from your table you have multiple things, but you don't need to explain everything now. You pick the keywords. Okay, this is the prominent. This is the least one. Rest of the thing the reader will go and see that table. Refer to the key information. And use past tense throughout when you say results. Past tense. Because you did something, right? And in the results section, avoid interpretation. Focus solely on the fact that you got in your results. No interpretation. Interpretation comes where? Under the discussion. But I know there are still some journals, they go results and discussion together. But now most of the journals, they go results and then discussion. Most of them. Now even those journals are phasing out that results discussion together. That's why the beer is not nice. Put results together and then you discuss. And very importantly, ensure the tables are self-explanatory. What do you mean by self-explanatory? If you just take a table with table title, it should clearly explain everything for you without the person who drafted. Suppose you are sending your draft with a table to your supervisor. Supervisor should be able to read and understand the table. And you don't need to be by the side of her to explain this means what this means. You can't include any abbreviation in your table title. Self-explanatory. Now I will go one after the other each and every sections. Introduction. So introduction is very important to capture the audience's attention and provoke thoughts. It's very important introduction. But sometimes some of the introduction when you read, you don't feel like reading more. Just throw it. But there are some papers when you read the introduction, you feel like, oh, I need to read some more. I need to read some more. Keep reading. So for that to happen, there should be a logical flow of your introduction. So we call cohesion. C-O-H-E-S-I-O-N. Cohesion. So there should be a cohesion between each of your paragraph And there should be correlation between each of your sentence within the paragraph. Got it? How do you develop that skill? This cohesive way of writing or logical flow of writing. Starting from that and developing, you just link. Each sentence is intertwined, well linked. The first sentence is linked to the second. Second is linked to the third. Third is linked to the fourth. And first paragraph is linked to the second paragraph. Second linked to the third paragraph. How do you develop that skill? You go to class to study? Huh? I don't think so. How do you develop that skill? By reading good quality papers. Reading makes you perfect. Read papers as much as possible. That's the best way. Even my knowledge, my first language is not English. My first language is Tamil. But I improved my English knowledge. How? By reading. Trust me. Sometimes I lie, but you have to accept those lies, huh? No, I have about it. Reading makes it perfect. So read more. Read more. How many papers do you read a week? Three papers a week. How many papers do you read a week? One? Probably one. Yes. The last. How many papers do you read a week? 2 papers, don't I? One paper, you read 2 papers. I don't read a paper a week. It's very hard for me. Maybe a paper, I just go through a couple of papers a week, but not complete paper, not possible. Maybe you are very smart. That lady is so smart. 3 papers a week. Very good. Because you are a PhD. Huh? Abstract, okay. Got it. Right. So read, no? Yeah. Whenever you are free, don't go to the WhatsApp, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Just keep TikTok, read papers. Yeah. This is the time. Once you miss this time, you will not get it back. This is the right time. When I was doing my master's and bachelor's, I have to really share this one. I used to go home only for eat. So twice a year, go home. Other times, always study. Also, I was doing some tuitions at that time, but anyway, make some money. Yeah. But yeah, use this time. It's a very useful time for you to go up. Right. So you always in your introduction should tailor your information, your message, to specific audience of the target journal. Suppose if you are trying to publish in the Journal of General Virology, so the target audience is virologists, right? So when you are writing a paper towards virologists, you don't need to more focus on molecular aspect of virology, not much, but more of general virology, because journal is Journal of General Virology. There are some other journals for you, more molecular aspects of virology, for example. Suppose if you are writing your paper is based on CRISPR-Cas, gene editing, and then it has to be to a molecular biotechnology journal rather than a general basic biotechnology where you publish something related to tissue culture or micropropagation. You got it? So yeah, and so you're writing. I mean, even if you have done something related to that, the way of writing can reflect in different ways. Okay, your same study can be written in different directions. So your emphasis and your way of writing should vary according to your journal's audience. And always the publishing is a kind of developing on what is already available. So it's something their knowledge, that's that domain, and you have found something small one and you just develop on top of that. So you have to say, okay, this is what has already been done. And then there is a question. This has not been done anywhere. But it is important. So we have found this, something like that, okay? And present the clear question and hypothesis. That's what I said now. This has been done, blah, 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 but there is a gap, a research gap, and you explain what that gap is and why it is important to bridge that gap, or find the knowledge, and that is what you have to do. And then you have to conclude with a defined research aim. Okay, so to solve that issue, so this is our hypothesis, and this is our research aim or objective. And this is our research question. Then talking about materials and methods, that's very easy, right? But ensure writing is clear and accessible to non-technical person. Because most of the developed countries, except for students, the laboratory work is undertaken by technicians. For example, in my lab, so my molecular aspects and everything is undertaken by technicians. But they come and talk to me whenever they have some issues. Otherwise, they do all the things and do all this and bring the data for me to analyze. And they write the materials and methods. Then I write other stuff. I start from results and bring that materials and method to begin and write it. So that's how it works. But so what I'm telling is that, so therefore, for the other laboratory technicians to understand this, so your writing should be very clear. It always should be very clear. In non-technical, even for non-technical readers, they should be able to understand what you have written. And that will allow for easy replication of your work. If somebody else wanted to do something similar to you, and if you have written something not clear, it will be difficult for them to repeat the work. So if you make it very clear, that will benefit you as well, because they will cite your paper. Your citation will increase. And in the method also, you have to use past tense. What is this? Logical flow. So every piece of work, abstract to the last, should be a logical flow, which is very important. So these are some of the key things in introductions. Present the main answer to the research question or hypothesis. You have to give that main answer in the introduction. You have to identify that one. Okay, so what's going to be your hypothesis? You have to identify, because that is why you have to write all the things and come to introduction later, because that will help you to craft it well. You have written the results, you have written discussion, you have written method, and everything in your head now. Now you know, now you can dive. You are a fully fledged diver, you can dive anywhere. So that is where you do. That is what you do in introduction. Got it? So you can change the direction easily. Summarize the key findings of the study being reported. You can do that in introduction. At the very beginning or at the last point. Just before concluding. I'll tell you how to conclude that. But in some journals, some people don't like to bring that key finding in introduction. But some people, they won't, particularly Andrew Gearing likes always to have a piece of finding in introduction. It varies, but it's a good point. Evidence for and against. From the literature, what has already been done to support this question and against this question. So we can bring that, discuss supporting evidence from existing literature. And also highlight any opposing evidence for that literature. It's a kind of argument, I mean, it's a kind of way of, it's not discussion, but it's a bit similar to discussion, not much, I mean, yeah. But anyway, I will tell you how to write introduction. And you can also discuss about the, sorry, we are talking, sorry. Yeah, we are talking about discussion. I got confused, yeah. We are discussion, but discussion introductory points. So, yeah. You have a market, can I use that market? Sorry, the board? You have a market?
This one.
So, don't get confused. So, we discussed about results. We now talking about discussion. In the discussion, so we have, say, for example, 4 or 5 paragraphs. For instance, so this paragraph we call introductory paragraph. Introductory paragraph. And this last small paragraph is concluding paragraph. Some journals, some people try to include this concluding paragraph, whereas some people separate this one and put it under a title called conclusion. You can put it either way. So you can have a concluding paragraph at the end, or it can go to a separate section, a small conclusion. So in this introductory paragraph is the one that I'm talking about. Okay, don't get it confused. It's not the introduction of the original manuscript. I mean, the introduction before the one that is coming before the methods. Is it clear? So in this introductory paragraph, okay, so before coming to that, how many sentences can make a paragraph? I'll keep it. Yeah. How many sentences do you need for a paragraph? 3 sentences, 4 sentences, 5 sentences, 6 sentences, 7 sentences, 7 sentences. Those who say 7 sentences. Okay, 1. Only 1. 6 sentences. 5 sentences. 1, 2. Some are halfway, 50%. Okay. And 3 sentences. 2 sentences. 1 sentence. I think some people have not raised their hand. That means no sentence a paragraph. Or more than 7 sentences. Optimum 4 sentences. Optimum. But maximum 5. Don't go beyond 5. Minimum 3 sentences. That's it. So in a paragraph, you have to have introductory sentence, first sentence. Last sentence is concluding sentence. Middle 3 or 2 or 1, the minimum case is the body sentence. And there should be always link between these. 3 or 4, maximum. 4. Right? So that's a paragraph. But some people write paragraph with how many sentences? 15, 20 sentences. It's like on 2 pages, 1 paragraph. And each sentence is like so big, maybe 30, 40 words. No, it's very lengthy, yeah. Should be very small. Okay, so in that introductory paragraph, we have to present in the discussion the key question and answer or the hypothesis. Your key finding has to come in the first sentence. I'll show some of my papers. We will bring some examples. And also you can summarize the key finding of the study being reported. Right? And then in the body paragraph, you have to write about the evidence for your finding, evidence against your finding. You can say, okay, these people have done something, and this is for your finding, supporting your finding. This supports, this one's verse. Carroll et al. 1985 supports that, blah, 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 whatever you have done. While a study reported in Europe, somewhere by this, says the other way. Something like that, okay? Don't write other way, I'm just telling there. Yeah, it's always important to highlight the opposing information. Otherwise, what happens? Your reviewer will ask that question. They will do that. And also, in the one paragraph, before the concluding paragraph, the paragraph here, somewhere here, it is always important to acknowledge the challenges of your experiment. It's always better. What are the challenges? What are the problems that you have? What are the other way of doing this? What needs to be done in future? You know that. You have to claim, you have to show that. Don't worry about hiding any, you've done something wrong, which is not which is okay, but which is not the very standard or very appropriate way, but that is okay. If that is the case, you can say that. There's no harm in saying that. All the reviewers and editors know about it. Suppose you have facility here which is not up to standard, for example. So you may think that, oh no, if this paper goes to somebody reviewer in the United States, they may think that it's a very old technology being utilized. So I don't think that they will publish, so I'm going to hide that information. No, you just say, okay, the best way to do this is that, but we have done with this, and we just given them good results. Something like that. So study strengths and limitations. You address any limitations encountered during the study. Any issues, please. And implications of finding, that is very important. What are the implications of your finding? Suppose if you have identified a virus which is new or bacteria which is new, which can spread very fast. For example, for the first time when the COVID-19 was identified, they published and said the implications. Okay, this virus can spread rapidly across the globe. Then the other countries, people started to prepare for that, started to prepare to curb the disease. You got it? So that's very important. So discuss practical implications of the finding, but always cautiously. Don't put more on that and exaggerate that and bring more fear. No, just be honest about it and then give the message. Suppose you found a bacteria causing a disease, a weird disease, a new disease somewhere in some place, say, for example, tomato, but it's very occasional. But you think that if you say that occasionally found in some of the samples, it will not get published, not get attention. So don't go and say, oh, this is a very serious problem, spreading everywhere. 50% or 60% of the farms are, no. Say the truth. No. Yeah. The right implications, but very cautious. Consider the broader insignificance of the results within the field. And additional findings, if you have any, suppose if you are doing the key part, but there are some additional findings coming through that, you can just mention that. Mention other notable findings from the study. But that may not be the central and a key area of the main hypothesis, but you can show that. And then that final one. So these ones come in the middle, in the body. Each of the key findings, each of your key finding in the results needs to be discussed. So suppose if you have 3 key findings, there should be 3 paragraphs minimum in the body of your discussion, and then there should be a paragraph for your implications and limitations to discuss, and then your concluding paragraph or the conclusion. So in the conclusion, summarize the overall conclusion drawn from the study. Can be two sentences. And reinforce the significance of the research outcome under the conclusion when you write in a separate conclusion section. So to use present tense or past tense for this, when you're writing your discussion, you're writing your discussions, whether you want to use present tense or past tense. So it depends, depending on the context. Suppose when citing previously published research, you have to use percent. Present. Somebody has already done, not you. For those stuff that you have done, you have to use past tense. Remember that. You are citing somebody else's work, it is present. Why? Because already published work is a fact. So any factual information should be reported in present tense. Remember like this, easy way to remember. Sun rises in which direction? East. So we use rises. Sun sets in west. It sets, present tense. Why? That is a fact. Nobody can change. Something like that. The published information is a fact. Actual information is reported in present tense. So, for example, a toxic protein known as crystal protein, or the other ways, Bacillus thuringiensis produces a toxic protein. Within brackets, somebody else says it are 1980. So it's a present tense. Why? That person studied and found out. Whereas, when you want to, yeah, I've given already, no? One example. Fusarium build causes significant yield loss in banana, but you have to give your citation, in-text citation. But when you are discussing your own study, your finding, you have to use past tense. For example, we evaluated the novel fungicide for controlling powdery mildew. Look at it, so cucumber. Something like that. Or in other words, we can say the bacteria showed or exhibited to prevent the growth of fungi in PDA medium. Something like that, past tense. And very important, citations and references. So for simplicity, for easiness, you can use any reference citation, reference management software, like EndNote. I don't know whether they have EndNote here. Yeah, okay. And you can use Mendeley, that is free. Zakeel, that is also free. Any of these? Is this a group that I did Mendeley last time? Yeah, I did.
No, somewhere.
Okay, I did 2 lectures for some other countries. Somewhere I did recently about Mendeley, how to use it. What's the difference between, have you heard about this one, reference and bibliography? What's the difference between these two? Have you heard about it first? Both? Reference, bibliography. Huh? Which one you use? Reference. You don't use bibliography. Have you heard about it? Yes. What is that? Don't know. Okay. It's quite, some people use it interchangeably, but that's wrong. References means, for example, in journal, we use references because all the in-text citations that we give there, we provide the full reference at the end. So that is what we call references. So we provide there everything in the text. Bibliography means we don't provide any reference citation in the text. Okay. And we may or may not use some of those literature, but we have written something, an article, for example, an essay, And we give some bibliography for the readers to get more information. But the piece of work that we have written is based on our own ideas, own thinking. But if the reader wants more information, okay, read that book, this article, that article, maybe 5, 6, references for additional information. That's bibliography. But for journal, we don't use bibliography. Maybe for books, sometimes we use. Not even book chapters, we use chapters. But that's the difference. Very important thing when it comes to references is consistency. I mean, when you use one of these reference management software, it's not a big deal, but yeah, there should be the style should be very consistent. And also the journals can have specific format. So if that's the case, we can go to the EndNote or ZeroO, we can change that format. You can select that format and use it. If not there, you can create that. Maybe next time, maybe can teach you about future probably, or how to use this reference software. And if you entered the detail accurately when you added those references to your management software, reference management, then everything will be correct. At the end, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to go and do it manually. You can relax. Otherwise, every time it's right. Keep on proofread. You keep on proofreading before sending it to your supervisors and mentors. You have to proofread by yourself. You have made a lot of mistakes. Always make yourself that you have made a mistake. Yeah, there is a mistake. Which is that? How is that? Whether it is going very nicely. Give your work to your colleague. Ask them to read it, find some, and do it at the very grassroots level before bringing it to the high level. Right? Is the terminology applied is consistently throughout the document? Are the numbers in the abstract consistent with the table, the result section? If there are any differences? Sometimes you use 80% or 81%, and when it comes to abstract, you say 85%. I don't know how it changed. Sometimes it happens because you started writing abstract advanced, and then you did some more analysis, and if you found some changes, you have included in the table and results, but not in the abstract. That's why abstract needs to be written at the last, at the end. Do in-text citations correspond accurately to the reference list? Sometimes you have more in-text citations, no in the reference list. Sometimes vice versa, right? So you have to check. Are the syntax and grammar appropriate? Sometimes, some of the grammar, some syntax, some word choice, some word order may not be appropriate. Check them. Check. How do you check them? Yeah, give it to someone who is good at English department, English department, or somebody, or some already know people have done. Some people like with good command of English. Yeah. They can help you with that. Or will you use that one? What is that? Huh? Grammarly, the other one, the reason. ChatGPT. Will you use ChatGPT? No. Now, I found one very interesting. Recently, I found somebody has used ChatGPT to write the paper, and it's published in an Elsevier journal where ChatGPT has said something, and that part is also there in that paper. But they have not even proofread what they have got from the ChatGPT, and they just put, and I don't know what journal it is, published. And that was presented by one professor from US last time, 2 months ago. We had a conference, and then they talked about this. Yeah. Right, now question time. A good scientific journal article covers a broad spectrum of diseases in question. Option B is focused on a specific question. Who's this? Option 1 or 2? If you say option B. B say, those who say B, those who say A. Very good. B, huh? Yeah. We don't need to cover the all aspects, not many. 1 or 2, right? Maximum. Yeah. In a well-structured scientific paper, second question, the abstract and accompanying tables and figures should be comprehensible on their own without requiring full reading of the entire document. Option B, in some papers, understanding the abstract and table and figures may necessitate reading the whole text. A or B? Those who say B, A? No answer? Or yeah. A, right? Self-explanatory. So without going through the entire paper, we should be able to understand figures and tables. But we don't need to read the entire paper to understand. We should be able to understand just by looking at the table or figure. Right. Now it's the time for an abstract. You've done introduction, results, blah, blah, blah. Now abstract. Abstract is like a mini paper again. Why? Because abstract itself has an introduction. Abstract itself has a method. It has results and it has key conclusion. So it's a mini paper, a miniature paper. So abstract should have an introduction, 1 to 2 sentences, a method, key results, and a discussion, 1 point or a concluding statement. Conclusion. You don't have enough space in the abstract to write every result and every discussion. No, because abstract is maximum 350 words. Some journals 250 words. Very limited. And again, it's very important to have a logical flow and conciseness. Very important. It's very important. Very abridged and clear. And again, when it comes to abstracts, there are so many drafts, so many groupings. Now, you have submitted, and then that was accepted by the editorial board, and then now it's gone to reviewers, review, and you've got to review the comments, how to address the comments. That's also an important part of publication journey. Always remember that you have to treat the reviewer's comments or reviewer's views or perspectives as valid, even though he is wrong. Okay? Or right, whatever. Can be either way. The reviewer can be right or wrong, but don't always try to refute unless otherwise it's really matters to refute a comment. Because sometimes what our people's tendency is to always try to refute whatever the reviewer says, even though the reviewer is correct. Or neither is correct. Both way is correct. We can adjust reviewers way, we can accept the reviewers. I mean, if it is both are correct. Okay. So treat reviewers' perspective as well. Even if you disagree with the reviewer's view, approach all comments as constructive feedback through your work. That's what I do. Whatever they say, I get something from that and include the comments. Really speaking, that helps. Reviewers' feedback helps to take time to accept. Because why we don't try to accept that reviewers' feedback? Because we just quickly go through at a glance and think, oh, the rubbish guy. He said, yes, that necessary comment. what I have done is correct. No. Then you spend time reading reviewers' comment and try to understand and absorb it, and there should be a point there. Then you can work on it. One good example. Recently, we got another paper submitted to a journal. And a reviewer said, we have optimized a method for that. To compare several methods, we need to show, particularly qPCR and all the PCR methods, we have to show something called limit of detection and limit of quantification, LOD and LOQ. It's a statistical procedure. In chemical analysis, it's different. There's an equation, but when it comes to qPCR, it's a lengthy procedure. And very recently, last year, some people in Europe has developed methods, right? For medical based diagnostics, they have developed LOD, LOQ detection method. And the reviewer suggested to use that. For that, we need a lot of data. A lot of data. Then we use a different method, which is generally used for biochemistry. And that guy, we said that. The response, we said, okay, we accept that, yeah, this is the method, correct method, but we don't have enough samples, and we have used this method. Second time, the reviewer said, no, we cannot accept that, the correct method, you better use that. And what we did, we repeated the analysis, it's not more sort of data, the analysis. But now I feel that this is really correct. Rather than using inappropriate method, the appropriate method is validate your result, right? You can now say that, okay, my method, okay, the method that I have developed is better than anything else in the world. So there is a very strong evidence. Okay. That's the benefit of looking at that. So avoid responding immediately, because immediate response may not be correct. So take time, read it carefully a couple of times and understand what they have meant, and then address it. Give yourself enough time. Thoroughly digest and understand the news. Address every point thoughtfully, carefully and thoughtfully. You have to address every point. Make sure to respond to each comment in a detailed and respectful manner. For reviewers, when they're given a comment, you always appreciate that. You appreciate your feedback. Thank you for providing this feedback. Also, then you say, so we have addressed this or whatever. You can mention that, okay, we have done this in our revised manuscript within bracket line number blah 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 blah. Line number 135. And then in your revised manuscript, you have to do that change, and then you have to track change, or you can put in a different color or highlight or we have mentioned that in the cover letter. And always be gracious and professional, always gracious, appreciate. Maintain a polite and positive tone in your cover letter. Even if you find the feedback is challenging, most of the time feedbacks are challenging, really, or disagree with certain points. 3 weeks ago, I got a paper to review. It's a review paper. One of the author, the senior author, is a prominent professor in that mycorrhizal guy from USA, Canada. Sorry, from Canada. He's a very popular guy. If you go to his profile, you can see maybe over 10,000 citations. Very prominent guy. I know him. I have cited his work a lot. But I got a paper from, he's a senior author, but corresponding author is somebody else. There are so many authors, review articles about mycorrhizal. But the review is not that good. I was the reviewer. I didn't have enough time, but because of him, I wanted to review. Because I thought I can learn something. I can get more ideas from that work. But the paper was not that, because I don't know whether the reviewer, he knew that. Yeah. But anyway, got it. But I had to reject, but I didn't do that. I provided major revision, I provided a lot of comments. And then 1 week ago, before coming here, 2 days ago, 2 days before coming here, I got the revisions. They have done everything very well, but they appreciated each point they addressed and provided the reasons and well articulated response and the revisions. Now the manuscript looks okay. Then I accept it with minor changes for a little bit of edits. So that's the life, right? That's how it goes. Regardless of whoever the author is, you see, this author, more than 10,000 citation made how many publications? He's a professor still working in Canada. Provide clear explanation for any disagreement. That's the point. I mean, you should not disagree for every. You don't need to rebut any of his comment, but in cases where you really have to rebut any comment, then you decide not to follow a suggestion, explain your reasoning respectfully. How do you do that? I think I will show one of my rebuttal that I did recently. The way of doing it is, this is how we do. The way you say is also okay, but the way I say is better, slightly better than that. If I say something like, oh, no, I don't agree with what you say. What we have said is correct. That is very authoritative. Nobody likes it. If I come and say, what you said is okay, yeah, that is also acceptable. But what we say is a bit, not much, bit better. It is not authoritative, right? Very assertive behavior. So then, yeah, this guy is okay. And then he said, okay, go ahead. That's the way. Okay, so when you review, that's the question. That's the way. Make changes easy to identify. Clearly indicate where your revisions are. Provide the line number. Use track change or use different color, which is visible and readable. Express appreciation for feedback. As I told you, always the big places. Acknowledge the reviewer's effort and thank them for their time and insight. And seek advice if needed from your supervisors or from the reviewer. So if a comment is unclear, consult with a colleague or mentor, your supervisor, to ensure a well-considered response. Now, question time. So we have time.
Around 15 minutes left.
Okay. A good scientific paper will be written in active voice, passive voice, a mix of both. I think you know active voice, passive voice. They know, right? Active voice, passive voice, right? You know that difference, right? Active voice, for example, what can I say? We did a PCR. A PCR, that's an active voice. A PCR was done by us. It's a passive voice. So which one is good for a scientific paper? Active voice or passive voice or a mix of both? This is your question. Yep. Passive voice. Passive. Very good. All of them make life tough. They like very complicated. So which one you can easily understand? We did the PCR. A PCR was done by a team of people. Which one is easy to understand? We did a PCR or a PCR was done by us? Huh? We did a PCR. Very simple. So for scientific journal, we have been talking about be simple. So which tense? Active voice. People like when it comes to theses and blah, 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 blah. Even for me, when I was studying, so yeah, no, it's not broken. When I was studying my undergraduates, always they think that passive voice is the word, reported. No, never. Active voice. Active voice. Make it simple, very direct, simple. Okay? So, A. Second one, very important point. When you define a term in your paper, a new term, you define that, you have to use it consistently. Use the same term. Otherwise, you will confuse the reader. Don't find the synonym for that term and use. No. Don't feel that you are breaking the, you are monotonous. No. When it comes to term, but other words, okay. But if you introduce a term there, use that term consistently. And final task, what's that? Finalizing your title. A good title is defined as the fewest possible words that adequately describe the contents of the paper. A title is extremely important and must be chosen with great care. It will be read by thousands, if not millions of people, and only a few will read the entire paper. And title is also important for indexing purposes. So therefore, we have to be very careful when you select the words for your title. Very attractive title, simple title. By looking at the title, the reader should be, that should give a sort of insight or the encouragement for the reader to read the paper more. And improperly titled paper will get lost and will never be read. That's why you don't get citations. And never use abbreviations in title. And also the other thing, which I have not included here is keywords. But I have found in most of the papers, even in published papers, most of the people make a mistake. What's the purpose of using keyword? The use of keyword is for index. So journals, your paper is indexed based on your title and the keywords. So if anybody wanted to search for a paper and they put some words and the search engine, whether Google, Scholar, whatever the engine that they use, they will go and match with the title and keywords and bring the articles. Suppose if you are using keywords which are already available in the title, you are losing some chances of your paper being selected. So always avoid repeating any words that are already available in the title to use in the keyword. So select something new for keyword. Don't repeat any words that are already in the title. Okay? So that will increase your chance now, probability of your paper being picked. And we have 10 more minutes? 5 minutes? Only 2 slides.
Yeah.
Okay. Just about project proposal. It's a big topic, but anyway, I'll just really it's a big area. I know I can't. Yeah. Project proposal. I'll just put this. I recently we submitted again, project proposal depends. Depending on the grant provider and country and the organization, it's quite different. Some cases, proposals are called, so they call tender or whatever, and then they provide a format to write the proposal. Okay, write introduction, here write the method, objectives, and then collaborations and the budgets and so on, right? Expected outcomes and so on. And some proposals, nothing there. We have to write all of this. An introduction, expected methods, aims, and budget, and so on. So this is a proposal we recently submitted to a project funded by, we call in Australia, Smart Sat. It's a collaboration between New Zealand and Australia. It was a very competitive proposal for only 2 funding. There were 48 proposals, and our one was rejected. Yeah, I mean, CSIRO submitted 3 proposals, all got rejected. And my New Zealand partner wanted, I'm the one who submitted really. That is very well done, but still not done because 48 got application for just 2. Very difficult. and also it's something related to satellite imagery, analysis, epidemiology, and data, which is a very, very novel technique. And I'm a pathologist, and we are pathologists and epidemiologists working now, moving our horizon a bit further. But anyway, but they provided a few comments. They said, well done, everything was good, but only point that they said is this one. And this one. These two were missing in our proposal. So that's why I wrote everything. So in your project proposal, these factors should be reflected. The first one, strong record of collaborations. Better if it is international. In Australia, in developed countries, they always go for international collaboration. If you have international collaborations, project partners have access to resources and connection to the delivery of it. So you have to make sure the funder, the funding agent, that you have enough facilities, capabilities to go and do the projects. Otherwise, they will pump the money and you don't have fund, you don't have any facilities, you don't have capability, you don't have expertise, then the project will fail. Okay, you have to showcase them that you have all the capabilities. And then the scope. The scope is globally important, or the scope is aligning with the objective of the funder, whatever they wanted you to do. Right? Suppose if the funding agent is giving money to safeguard farm industry, and if you take that money and do something else for banana industry, no, it's not going to help you. So you have to show that. Potential customers identified. And always now the new paradigm shift in research is that, particularly when it comes to agriculture, early days, researchers wanted to do something they identified as a problem and developed some solution and just gave to the growers. Growers did not care about implementing. That was known as technology push. You develop some technology and push onto the growers to implement. They don't want to implement it because they don't know, they don't like it, it doesn't work for them. So the new approach of developing technology is co-innovation. So we work with our stakeholders. One of our stakeholders are growers, farmers, or industries if it comes to food-related stuff, So we have to include them. We have to get their ideas and bring those ideas into our proposal. So we have to show that our idea, our proposal was co-evolving with the ideas of growers, stakeholders, industry partners, and so on. So that has an impact. Why? Because if most of the growers wanted to change this way, for example, they wanted to go for biocontrol agents to control some insect problem, so we don't need to go and bring some new chemistry. We can develop biocontrol. Okay, something like that. And you have to develop novel ideas, but always focus on developing on existing models, existing knowledge, existing strategies, rather than innovating very, very new, which is very difficult, which will take 50 years, 100 years. An explanation of, and then milestones, well-defined milestones. Okay, at the end of first year, we would have been achieved. This will be achieved by the second year, third year. Well-defined milestones identified, and the contributions from each part, who is going to do what. All needs to be very clearly identified. Explanation of how the proposed work is novel or different to others work globally. So why your work is important? Why it is different to others? You have to explain that one in the proposal to make your proposal standing. Providing evidence of long-lasting impact and uplift. What's your project going to tell you? How these knowledge or this development going to contribute to the economy of the country? Well-being of the growers, yeah, all of this. Provision of use cases. What do you mean by that? So suppose you are developing one technology, then you can say something. You can have a piece of work to test your work, a case study, for example. Right? Or laboratory trial or in vitro trial and a field trial, something like that, part of it. And it's very important that if you have an in vitro trial or a glass out trial alone, you cannot publish. Now, most of the journals wanted to have a field trial as well. And more importantly, a single year field trial is not going to help you. You have to have at least 2 years field trial, multiple locations, at least 2 or 3 locations. But there are some very basic journals, of course, yes, but you want to go for a better journal, better to go field trials. So always in your proposal, try to include those things. Field trial, multi-location, multi-year field trials. If you want to test some. And listing the existing expertise. List all those information. So we have in IPP, Plant Protection Department, expert virologist, expert mycologist, biostatistician, bioinformatician, molecular biologist. We have a laboratory. We have Oxford nanopore sequencer. You have to say that. Then you find out these guys have everything. So our project will succeed. All for today. Too much talking. We get something. 5% of what I told.
Yes.
If any question, please speak with us.
Thank you so much, Zakeel, for your lecture and so many inspiration and insight for our students. So I think hopefully from your lecture, they can inspire to write a good paper. So it's almost lunchtime. So probably I will give you 5 minutes to make a short discussion. If you have any question, please raise your hand.
And if you have your papers to be discussed, feel free to, you can get my emails and things and feel free to contact me.
Yes,
Yeah,
this is
yes,
Zakeel's
yes.
email. Yeah.
Feel free to contact me.
Okay.
Your question, yeah.
1, 2. Okay, give me first.
I love questions.
You can deliver in Bahasa Giving. I can help translate. Or if you want to ask in English, feel free.
Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Zakeel. I will have a question for you. I saw that you have published an article in your European Journal of Pathology, right? Could you share your experience and give some tips and tricks for getting accepted there? Because I yesterday tried the submitting for European Journal of Pathology and my work is rejected and transferred for other journals. Thank you.
What's the title of that paper? What's the title of your paper?
Development of deep learning based detection horticultural yellow disease and horticultural for yellow giveaway.
No, I mean, can you word it? I mean, just read the title, exact title.
Deep learning.
No, can you still to
Bisa
read the
nggak
exact title?
baca judul pasnya, judul sebenarnya.
Because I have European Journal of Plant Pathology, I know 5 or 6 of the editorial board members are good friend of mine. Femi is also an editorial member, European Journal of Plant Pathology.
Development of deep learning based detection method for yellow disease in horticultural plants.
Yeah, that's a question. I mean, You could have done it a different way. Yeah, why you want to say the word development? We don't need to say development. We can say simply whatever the disease detection made easy or something different way of crafting your title have an impact. Because what the editorial, the test reviewers, they don't have much idea about whether the paper suits the journal or not. What they do is they have software, they copy your title and the abstract, put it to the software, and software compares your title with the scope of the journal, and that brings different scope. If it is less than 40% or something, reject it. That's the reason. I mean, it has not gone to the reviewer. If reviewer knows, they will never do. They will never reject. What they do is, now the software suggests some other journal because you put deep learning, machine learning something, the software will pick, this is something related to computer science or computer vision. So they say, this is not the right journal. No, if you go and look at the novel diagnostic techniques, it's also a scope of European Journal of Pathology. Got it? Got the point? Yeah, it all depends. That's why I said you select the journal and then look at the scope, and your title should reflect their scope. It's very important, title and abstract. So that's why we write them very late based on the journal selection. We select the journal later on. We draft. That's very, very important. And they say, they suggest one journal. Then you submit that one to that journal, and that journal, then again they may reject it. Because they use a different keywords, different scopes. So that keeps on. That's what I said, one of my known person, he got this rejection over 15 times. Okay, an Indian author. That's very important. If you want to get by the way, I've got 2 papers to review. Yeah. And the chief editor is an Australian now for the European Journal of Pathology. I know him.
Yeah, it's our lecture. Okay,
No, not
thank
Femi. I mean, he is a co-editor. I mean, the chief editor is somebody from Western Australia.
Thank you, Zakeel, for your tips. Okay, next question. Also,
Yeah, thank you. My question. Yeah. Just one question. What are the criteria? What are the criteria that can be used to assign the orders of authors?
Very good question, but very difficult question. It is obvious to assign your, the most senior author is the last one. That's obvious. The person who wrote the grant, the person who developed the idea. You got the point? The person who wrote the money, wrote the proposal, developed the idea is the last author, and he is the senior one, he or she. Suppose she has brought a grant and she has she is supervising you, but the grant is from her. The proposal written by her, so she is the senior author and she is the last one. The last author has more value. Okay? And the first author. First author is the one who has done the work most. First author is the one who has done the work mostly. And if a work is done equally by 2 persons, for example, you and you did, your contribution is more or less same. You did 40%, you did 40% of the manuscript, then any one of you can be first and second. And then we can declare below that you put an asterisk after each one of your names and said, the asterisk indicates the authors contributed equally. Okay? And the rest of the authors, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all authors contributed a little bit, 5%, 2%, 1%. And depending on that order, 50, 40%, and another 40%, maybe 10%, maybe 5%, 2%, 1%. And the last author, major contribution, that's CD. And Got it?
Corresponding author.
Corresponding author can be anyone. Mostly the first author or last author or both. I mean, if you are corresponding, you can correspond, but you can put last author's email as a corresponding author as well. Or the last author can be corresponding author or the first author. Or if you have any internal agreement, even the middle author can be a corresponding author. It's not a big deal. The corresponding author is the person who corresponds. That's it. It doesn't have a bigger impact now. People think that, but it's not. Why corresponding author is needed? Because if a paper is published, if somebody else has wanted that copy who doesn't have a access to that paper, then they will contact the corresponding author, and the corresponding author will send a copy. And the other case is if somebody wanted some data from you, and if you declare that the data is accessible but under some permission, then they will contact you. And then you contact, the correspondence between you and the editor office until the paper is published. Once the paper is published, that's it. And the gallery proof comes to you. You can show the gallery proof to others and get the ideas, and you have to, if you are the corresponding author, you have to do these functions. Hope I answered your question. Yes, yes. Any more?
Probably one more question, okay? Class. From the Sulawesi, Canada, comes from. It's fish and fry, friend.
Okay, thank you for giving the chance to question. I have a problem about my my journal manuscript. First, I have research hypothesis. And I did research for that. But the result of his research, my research at firstly what I want my research is at first have at first effect, and then I want to the question what do you think what I should do. I want your advice. Thank you.
I think that is as well. I think you hypothesize something, but you got results something different.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you publish it, right?
Yes.
Yes, very good. And I have an example too, from my work. Publication is not only publishing positive results, you can publish negative results as well, provided that it ends. I know some of you may have been to the keynote speech where I said I published one paper in European Journal of Plant Pathology, the one that we're talking about. See, that's a negative result. The hypothesis was a virus and bacteria and phytoplasma are causing the disease. That's a hypothesis. But the results were no bacteria, no phytoplasma, no virus. We published. Why? Because that's new information. Somebody will need, may not need to come and again do phytoplasma, again do bacteria, again do the virus. Because we have proved using various methods that is not the cause. But the hypothesis was that's the cause. So it's possible. But again, depending on how you write, how you market, how you sell. Got it? It all depends depending on how you craft, how you bring that information. If you just simply say, okay, I did this one, my hypothesis was safe, but I got negative results, who can? Put it away. But you can bring it and put more important. Yeah, feel free to contact me. I mean, if you want, I mean, if you have a draft and if you need some feedback and things like that, I'm just good to that. I'll take a bit more time, but it's quite busy, but I will do that. Yeah, yeah. Anyone that you want to.
Okay, thank you for your thanks. I will contact you.
It's possible. Negative results, you can publish.
There is one chat from Zoom. Dimas, would you please help?
Oh, link presensi aja Bu. Isinya link
Okay.
presensi.
It's attending list, link of attending list. Not
Not a question.
Yeah. Okay,
You
it's,
can also contact me for your paper with something. I mean, you need more than that. European level.
probably tomorrow, Zakeel. Tomorrow, Zakeel,
Yeah.
after, before the lunch, probably I will provide 30 or 1 hour. If students already have the draft of manuscript and they make a consultation with you.
So tomorrow I'm coming here,
Yes,
Okay.
morning.
early morning, yeah, better,
Yes.
yeah, so that I can go early.
Okay. Oh, many attendings. Is there any question from the online Zoom? From the online attendants? No? Okay,
It's good, really?
yeah. Because it's lunchtime. Okay, so I have to stop the lectures. Thank you so much for your attending and thank you, Zakeel, for your lectures. So, okay, have a good lunch, everyone, and good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Oh, before I stop the guest lecture, we will make give appreciation. It's a certificate, probably to Asti. We'll and photo group jangan pergi dulu ya.
Here another certificate for you,
Thank you so much.
especially for the guest lecture.
Oh, wait.
Ayo kita foto berapa? Semuanya main.
Info kayak jadi ya.